Hello, hello, Rebecca here of Carnivore Wellness. Today I want to dig into the lessons I learned about an extended period of time where I fasted. Now that hindsight's 2020 and I have the insights that I did not have then about how fasting affected me both in the short term and the long term. So let me first set up and describe for you the fasting and the type of fasting that I did starting around spring of last year, 2024. So going back over a year. During that time, I started doing longer term fast. So I started with a 24-hour fast. That went well. Maybe another week or so went by and I tried a 36-hour. That went well enough. A few more days, maybe another week or two. And then, just kind of kept doing a few little smaller fasts. Some just 24 hours. But mostly I was trying to push myself to get into the 36-hour, 42, 48-hour fast, on up to 72-hour fast. And I even did 2 5-day fasts over the period of, I would say, 3 or 4 months. So from about April, May until I want to say, July, it was when I was fasting. And I had a lot of fasting hours under my belt. So I've come away from those experiences with some insight on fasting and what it can do for the body and the mind. And I want to describe those for you today. So the first thing that I want to tell you about is the benefits. Gosh, fasting is great, right? We all know that we may not all know, but okay, fasting stimulates autophagy. That's the body's natural cleanup process, going in and doing the cellular repair that we need from, all of the bombardment of environmental factors and, all the other stressors that we deal with. It forms in the body. And so we need a way to let the body clean that up. And that's what that autophagy process does. And that process, it's debated, but it starts around the 16, 17, 18-hour mark of being in a fasted state, which is just how many hours since the last time you ate. So with that in mind, I did experience a lot of healing, I'm assuming, because I also had some great signs of that. So benefits for the fasting. Mental clarity. That was probably my favorite. The mental clarity was dynamite, just when your brain and body are running on ketones and, you're burning that clean fat as fuel, then you feel good and you have mental clarity. And that's what I felt a lot of. That mental clarity gave me a lot of energy, which was really beneficial. I got a lot of projects done. I was able to go for long hikes, multiple hour long hikes. And I really just felt good. And even by the end of the day, a time period, especially with my young children, where I would often find myself feeling pretty exhausted, ready to end the day, I still was able to carry on with everything I needed to do, up until I went to bed. It's great. The other huge benefit was clear skin on my face and my arms and my legs. I have keratosis pilaris, chicken skin, those little red bumps. I've always had it. Many people say, it's a sign of insulin resistance, and once you go carnivore and you're no longer insulin resistant, it'll go away. You know what? I still deal with it. So I think there's some amount of genetic variation there. But I will say it improved. The appearance of those little red bumps greatly diminished. My skin healed well and really, by and large, felt smooth and really felt like, okay, this is one of the tangible signs of fasting other than the body composition, which I also had. With fasting, you're not eating, you're definitely in a caloric deficit. I lost body fat, which was great. That is why I was fasting. And that's key. That was my reason behind fasting, was I really wanted to shed the excess weight that I had cultivated while on a carnivore diet. I know people may not find their experience lining up with this, but I gained weight on carnivore. It was part of my path, part of my journey, for better or for worse. It is what it is. I've talked about in other videos how, I've struggled with binge eating and binge eating behaviors. So yeah, if you eat more food than you need, your body will have to do something with it and store it. For me, stored it as fat. I was trying to shed some of that and doing it with fasting. So I did see those results. And it was actually interesting because the weight loss that I would see on the scale corresponded with essentially 3/4 to a pound of fat loss a day. Well, I say fat loss. I'm sure some of it was water weight too. anyways, I was steadily losing weight. And so I would fast, for a few days and then take a few days off and then fast a few more days, and I really was trying to keep it going and to see this fat loss. Let's see, let me make sure I hit on everything else. Oh, I want to say, with regards to the energy level, I still had all my physical strength. Many times I was going on long extended hikes while fasted. I even lifted weights at the same number of reps and resistance and weights that I had worked up to. So I did not experience a diminishing in my strength training or my cardio performance, which great, that's awesome. You think, oh, if you're not eating, you can't perform physically. That's just not true. I was able to perform physically quite well. So I did love that aspect of being fasted too, and also knowing that in around that 48-hour mark, the human growth hormone production that your body is putting out during that time window is, it's nice and high. So it's a great time to go in the gym and, make those gains. And so that's what I was doing. And felt really empowered through that process of knowing, wow, I can do a hard workout in this fasted state. It really gave me a level of confidence in myself and what my body can do when I tap into that primal nature. There have been times throughout our evolutionary development where we did not have access to the feast. And instead we were amidst, famine, essentially, unable to find and consume food. So it's nice to know that my body was able to do that. And eating is not necessarily something that I have to live in fear of, oh gosh, I don't have food. If I don't have food, my body knows what to do. It knows how to switch over and tap into fat reserves. So that was great. All right. Really good stuff. Oh, and you know what? I said earlier that the mental clarity was my number one thing. And it is, but this is a subset of mental clarity that was really, really beautiful to experience. And that is that I would have these moments where, during the month, whether I was in a fasted state or not, but just in that window of time where I was fasting regularly, I would feel these moments of unbridled joy just rise up to the surface out of nowhere. Nothing is going on. Nothing in my external environment or situation was bringing about these feelings of joy. It literally just came up out of the inside of my body, and I would rise to this high place of feeling, wow, I feel so good. I feel so good. I love life. I love everything about it. And what a great feeling to feel, right? Don't we all want to feel that as much as we can? I know joy is not an emotion that we can hold on to and keep with us at all times, but it's definitely one of those peak emotions that we can experience when we allow ourselves to rise into that place of vulnerability and just the excitement that comes with being joyful. So I would feel these moments of joy very, very powerfully, frequently throughout the entire, 3-4 month time span that I was fasting. That was definitely my favorite. Okay, but there were some serious drawbacks. Number one, it's hard, okay? Not eating food when you're hungry or when others are eating or when you just want to eat, it's hard, okay? So fasting, especially for these longer day fasts, it's hard. Now you do get to a place where the hunger dies down and, you tap into these energy stores and you get the energy for the bursts, for the mental clarity, for the projects you want to do, and that all feels really good. But let's not kid ourselves. Like, I know fasting doesn't require that we do anything, which that's one of the things I'd tell myself. All I have to do is literally do nothing, aka not eat, and I'm fasting. But it's hard, straight up. That's a big drawback. Second thing, sleep gets a little dicey. It's a combination of things. What is it? You're norepinephrine? Is that it? Your body produces hormones from your adrenal system, I believe, to give you energy, to help raise your sense of awareness so that if you need to go out and hunt, which if you're in a fasted state, your body probably thinks, okay, you need to find a way to procure food, your body is more heightened and aware of what's going on. And also, so your body's more heightened and aware. It's almost like if you're asleep and you hear a rustle in the woods, your body would tell you, oh, go wake up and go try and pursue that animal, track it down, kill it, get you a meal, that sort of thing. So I was a light sleeper, and also I just didn't sleep as long. Now that part is maybe okay because plenty of folks say that when you're in a fasted state, the body just needs less of that rest and digest time because you're not digesting, you're just resting at night. So I could frequently get by with just, I'd say 6, maybe 7 hours of sleep. But for me, it meant a lot of early mornings waking up, just being done sleeping. So my sleep was less than ideal, but it wasn't necessarily problematic in that I did not feel like that energy hangover in the morning where I'm just dragging or anything like that. So sleep was fine, but it was impacted. Another drawback, muscle cramps. So I'd have to be extra mindful with my electrolyte usage and salt. A lot of times I'd have to put some salt under my tongue that would help stave off any kind of headaches or muscle cramps that I could become prone to. So I had to maintain my electrolyte balance so that I did not get the muscle cramps, because I did deal with that more so being in a fasted state than a fed state. I had to tend to my electrolytes and make sure that I was keeping that balance, because otherwise I would end up with muscle cramps, and especially at night, that's when they would kind of surface the most, is the muscle cramps, leg cramps, things like that. And fasting definitely contributed to that. Another thing that I dealt with that was a drawback is hair loss. Now, guys, I naturally have pretty thin, fine hair. Like, that's just my lot in life. Some people have these gorgeous manes that they're born with and maintain for life. That's not me. So when I start losing hair, gosh, like, I don't have a huge wellspring of hair from which to lose. So that's not great. But I'll tell you what, because I was seeing the body composition changes at that time, I just kind of told myself, well, if losing hair is the price I have to pay for a slimmer physique, then I was willing to make that trade, because back at that time, I was still really wrestling with self-love and body image issues. Okay, big time. Big time. The other thing that didn't surface right away, but that I did notice in months that followed, is my nails got really kind of weak, and I got some of those lines, the little white lines you get in your nails that can be indicative of nutrient deficiencies. So yikes-a-rama, that was probably not great, but that symptom, I guess, or side effect did not show up for a few more months. You know, as your nails grow out, then you kind of get to see the story of your nutrition in your nails. And then the biggest drawback, I could do the fast. I could not eat for the window of time that I set before me. But when it was time to eat, when I was going back into that fed state, I would pretty much always overeat. I would overconsume. So yeah, I would go several days without eating, but then on the day that I would eat, I could easily consume, I don't know, 3, 4, 5,000 calories. Like, yes, that much in meat, in carnivore foods. I could do it. And I did do it. The problem comes when you're having more fed days than fasted days. So even though I was doing frequent fasts, longer fasts, and I would see the scale tick down every day and feel good, I would go back to eating and feasting. And so really I found myself trapped once again in a binging and restricting cycle. Now, gosh, guys, I've fasted before. I've already made a video before, like a year or so, 2 years ago, called like Fasting Fallout. Okay, I know these things about myself. And yet here I was once again thinking I can use fasting to, change my external appearance. Did I come at fasting from a place of love, spirituality, understanding, wanting to be good to my body and allow it to heal? No, I came at it as you are less than until you lose this fat, and this is the tool to do it. So buck up and deal. That's not the way. That's not the way. That's not the way we should be treating ourselves, our hearts, our minds, our bodies as we're trying to heal. It's just not great. So let me check in here, make sure I got all those drawbacks. Yeah, that was the biggest, was the seeing that I couldn't maintain the results. And so that gets me to the last point. I went on the scale, which I'm no longer getting on the scale because these numbers don't serve me, and I hope these numbers don't trigger you if they do skip ahead. I started at around 170. I got down, the lowest number I saw was 154. So that's pretty substantial, right? In the span of probably 3 months was when I saw that shift. And that was great, but that was the lowest number I saw on the scale. So that was a fasted number on the scale. Regularly, I would maintain on my non-fasting days around like 162, 163, 164. That was like a good comfort range for me. And my body seemed to always want to go back there. So I would fast and I'd get the weight down lower, and then I would, eat on my eating days, and that number would tick back up and then settle somewhere in the low 60s, 160s, which is fine. But I'm over here doing some hard work fasting. Like, I'm making some serious sacrifices. I'm going to bed hungry. I put myself through a lot, and I put my body through a lot because these fasts are stressful. So yes, there's some healing that's coming, and that's great, but I was doing them pretty sequentially, and my body was my body was getting taxed. And here's the monkey wrench that I threw in that I really think led to some unraveling as far as my hormonal balance and regulation goes. I took advice of fasting or of people who are in the fasting community and speak about how to enhance your fast or get through them. I started drinking coffee, which I personally I'm sensitive. I'm sensitive to the caffeine in coffee. It definitely disrupts my hormonal system. So I added in coffee probably around June or so maybe like 2 months into the fasting, and that really was when things started to go downhill. I started to, by the end of July, beginning of August, I started to get cystic acne on my back, my chest, my neck, and I only get that cystic acne when my hormones are dysregulated. Like for me, that is a correlation that is very clear. So I started getting these cystic acne bits. Now, meanwhile, I told you one of the benefits was I had this clear skin. Like great clear skin. It was healing my keratosis pilaris or chicken skin and pilaris, and it was benefiting me in that way. But I pushed my body too far, and especially once I added in the caffeine, body's already pumping out a bunch of these hormones that kind of make you more attuned and alert to what's going on, aka stress hormones, and the addition of coffee really ratcheted that up. So that wasn't great. Okay. And then, I'll tell you, I decided to step away from fasting because I could see that it wasn't panning out for me. And despite the fact that I didn't want to admit it, I really wasn't getting the results I was after, right? I was looking for lasting fat loss and reduction. I wasn't getting that. It was constantly going back up because of that desire to then overconsume on my eating days. My body has a set point and it wanted to hang out there, and I kept taking it below that, so my body would basically have me eat, bring my appetite and hunger in, and get me to eat until I got back up to that point, and then of course that's when I'd be ready for another fast. So really, I had put myself on the binge and restrict cycle yet again. Terrible. Not fair to me. And at that time, towards the end of the summer and then going into the fall, there were a couple pretty weighty emotional things that went on in my life. One is that when we were on a family vacation out west, our dog became really sick. He was less than a year and a half. He got really sick. Long story short, we had to put him down on that family trip. So when we returned to our home and our family life, the house was very empty. The kids went back to school. There was a huge open hole in my heart. So that was hard. We did get a new dog. She's so sweet, and I love her, and I'm so thankful that the universe delivered her to me as the gift that she is. Then came Hurricane Helene. At the time, I was living in East Tennessee, and the town that I lived in at the time was hit pretty hard, along with a lot of places in Western North Carolina. I personally was fine. My family was fine. We are so thankful and so blessed for that. I do not want to diminish anyone's experience by saying, oh, woe is me, because I was absolutely fine and totally held in safety and love in that, and I'm so grateful. However, I am a deeply empathetic person. I feel the energy, I feel the feelings of people around me. So when I would go out into the community, when I would, just driving around, anywhere and everywhere, all of our lives were touched. And there's just this palpable sadness and heartache that I felt very immensely. And little side note, I found it interesting. We always hear the words or the phrase, the body keeps the score. And I noticed during that time, every time I would go into the gym to lift weights, when I would get into, one of my big compound lifts relatively early on in my workout, I would feel that flood of emotion kind of well up and rise. And there were times where I was wiping away tears in the gym. And it was really just the release of that kind of communal trauma that we were all experiencing together. So there was some heaviness is what I'm trying to get to. And when all of that happened, when the community shift happened, and, I was experiencing that level of energy in the air that, is totally understandable. That heavy, I quit doing some of the things that had been maintaining my mental health up to that point. So I quit journaling, so I disconnected from myself. I quit meditating, so I disconnected from myself. And then I was on the heels of this really long, this longer period, this 3 to 4 month window of restrictive eating. So the binge eating came back, like really, really came back to the point that I was eating so much. Wow, it wasn't good. And in addition to just eating too much, I was also adding in dairy and processed meat. So a lot of hot dogs, pepperonis, cheese, even heavy whipping cream and stuff. It was not good. It actually led to lower back pain. And so I was still getting some inflammation during that time, and also just over consuming. And I ended up gaining back all the weight, all of it that I had lost from all of those fasts, and then more, and then more. So not only did I put myself through the ringer with these fasts in an effort to lose the fat, and then it came back plus some. Like, I'm talking plus another 5 to 10 pounds. Like, my set point went back up, and it stayed up. And I couldn't just make these small tweaks. That's what eventually led me to starting my intermittent fasting efforts in January, where I quit eating at 3 or 4 p.m. because I really had to get a hold on the binge eating. That kind of that fresh cycle of binging came on the heels of that fasting restriction. So for me, I had to learn that's not good for me. So there was a lot of personal growth that happened during the fasting itself, and then also in the realization of what I'd done to myself afterwards. So again, there were positives. So like the hikes I was going on while I was fasted really helped me feel empowered, and the confidence that I had as I was, seeing the slimmer figure, like that was great, but it wasn't lasting. And the realization that I could sit with the discomfort of hunger, that was pretty empowering, because I don't like hunger. I don't like sitting with hunger, and I definitely don't like sitting with hard feelings. So when I was unable to turn to food for comfort because I was in a fasting window, I had to be present with myself. So there was almost this element of forced personal growth because I did not have the distraction of eating. I've been an emotional eater. I've made several videos about that. So that was something that it was good for me to realize that I can sit with that discomfort of hunger. I can be hungry. It will pass. I will be okay. Seeing the pattern of the binging and restricting, that was like a key takeaway for me. And I want to make sure I covered my little notes here. Yeah, I was unable to fast for a really long time. So I did not fast for over a year after that. And not because I didn't want to, but because I could not. My body was not on board, and any attempts I had at, let me just see if I'm going to try this fast out and just see how long it can go, it just was a non-starter. Body said, no, thank you. We're not doing that fasting unless we absolutely have to, and we can see the fridge has food in it, so no, we're not fasting. So it's such an, and I would not say that I regret it, because I know I received physical benefits from the fasting. There were times I tell, my husband when I was fasting and we're going on day 3 or day 4, and I'm like, I'm over here curing cancer. And I truly believe that I'm over here righting the wrongs in my cells and, allowing my body to get rid of that which is not, isn't good, allows my body to get that stuff out. So that was great, but it fired up that binge and restrict cycle. And I'm grateful for that, because it was not until fall of 2024, so last year, that I realized the binge eating is not going to go away by just eating carnivore foods. The binge eating is not just going to magically disappear. I had to admit to myself, I still binge eat. Because for a long time, I just thought, this is my body trying to get me to eat enough. I'm following a carnivore diet. You can't overeat, blah, blah. We hear that kind of messaging. You can overeat, especially if you're a binge eater. I overate because I have this binge eating, emotional eating tendency. But I'm really grateful. I am really great, but I'm really grateful that I had this experience to highlight that this binge eating was something that I needed to tackle. It wasn't something I could just leave waiting in the wings, hoping and wishing that carnivore would fix. So awareness was the gift that came out of this experience, because I wouldn't go recommending it. Hey, go fast your tail off, or, 3 or 4 months, feel like you're making progress, and then spiral backwards and, fall down the stairs and start again. I wouldn't recommend it. However, I'm thankful for the insights that it provided me because I used that. I used that knowledge, that awareness, and just the straight up discomfort and feelings of shame and guilt and ickiness of being in that binged, overfed state following the fasting, that it spurred me to really take action for the start of the new year. And that's why I decided to get my tailing gear and, approach it from the standpoint of I'm just going to cut off my eating window at 3 or 4 in the afternoon, because I would tend to just keep binging, keep eating all until the evening and go to bed just bloated, full, overly stuffed, unable to get good sleep because everything's trying to digest instead of, doing all of its good cellular cleansing stuff like my body's supposed to do at night when I'm resting. So it led to change. It led to meaningful change. And in doing that intermittent fasting work from the start of January 2025, I have been really deep diving into the binge eating and where it's coming from. And I've learned so much about myself and where it came from, and also how to work with those realizations and work with that reality and transmute that into self-love. And I have done that. I am doing it. I can look in the mirror and say, I love you, Rebecca. And that is new. At the time when I first started that little fasting window, that 3 to 4 months in, May or whatever of 2024, I could not have looked in the mirror and said, I love you, Rebecca, with any level of seriousness, because I did not love myself. I was working on it, and kudos to myself for working on it, but I wasn't there. So all of that fasting was done out of a place of feeling less than, feeling not good enough, feeling unworthy. And I think, gosh, even I'll just side tangent here. I think that's a lot of why I pulled back so much with my efforts with growing the carnivore wellness community. I just felt like, how can I be someone who is supporting others if I can't get my own poop in a group? But we can all show up just as we are with the gifts, talents that we have, and still be of value to others while still working on our own, what. So I'm still working on it, okay? But it is nice to come from a place of a little bit more confidence, of feeling like I've been, disconnected from those binge eating behaviors for a while. Albeit they recently came up. Check out, one of my recent videos about how the binge eating behavior has resurfaced and how I'm working to manage that. But by and large, I came at fasting from a place of not feeling worthy, not feeling good enough. So what was the end result? Well, after the weight loss and then the subsequent weight gain that followed, I felt even more worthless. I just magnified that with the fasting, with the binging and the restricting. I just magnified it all, which again is valuable because it brought it to the forefront, to a place where I had to deal with it. When things come up to the surface, it's because it's time. It's time to deal with it. So I have been working on that, and that's where I am now. And I'm in this place of working on self-love and having a better relationship, or it'd be nice to have no relationship with food, where food's just food. That's where I'd like to get to. For now, I recognize that I'm still not quite there, and that's okay. But I really wanted to share this hindsight 2020 lesson of fasting, because when I was in it, when I was in those months of fasting and seeing the positive changes, and even though I was dealing with, hair loss or poor sleep or brittle nails, or, I still was, tooting the horn for fasting, because it did feel good. It did bring some benefits, but I wouldn't recommend it to anyone who's ever had a history of binging and restricting. And I think if you're going to fast, it's wise to make sure that you're doing it from a place of self-love, that you're doing it for the purposes of healing, that you're doing it because it feels right, because it feels in alignment with you loving yourself, not because you feel a lack of worth. Yeah, that's my 2 cents. That's my take. That's my experience. Yours may be totally different. If you've had success with fasting, I'd love to hear it. If you have tried it and not had success, I can understand that too. I'd love to hear that as well. It's one of those topics where there's so much information out there, and it really is an individual thing. I think, try it out for yourself and see if it's for you, but do so with caution, because it does have lasting impacts. And in my case, the lasting impacts, I would not recommend it to others if they were in a similar position as me when they started. Now, there are so many other people who have moved mountains for themselves in their quality of life and their experience by engaging in fasting routinely. So for those people, absolutely, we should continue to recognize that they are doing what is right for them. And to those people, I applaud them because also I know how hard it is. I know how hard it is to fast. And because it's so hard, you only want to do hard things if the result is commensurate with the amount of effort it takes. And in my case, it was not. Take that for what you will. I'd love to hear your fasting experiences, your thoughts. Share that in the comments below. Somebody else might see it. It might, help them. Before I end, though, I do want to say, I just broke a 44-hour fast this morning. Unexpected. I did not plan to fast. I woke up 2 days ago. I had some tummy issues. Things weren't feeling great. I managed to eat a few eggs, and then I just didn't have an appetite for the rest of the day. So I didn't eat. And then yesterday, I didn't have an appetite either. So I just kind of wrote it out and didn't eat. Ended up mowing the lawn. Took 2.5 hours. We just moved into a new place, and the lawn had gotten quite crazy tall before we were able to get a mower. So anyways, I was able to do strenuous physical activity while in a fasted state. So I do love that what I've taken out of this experience is I know my body can fast. But then this morning, I woke up, gently broke my fast with a few pieces of bacon, and it was great. And I don't need to keep fasting, but it was impromptu. That's what I'm saying. This recent fast that I did, it came from a place of needing to nurture my body. My digestive system needed a break. I'd had that digestive upset, irritable bowel or something, which I don't know where that came from, but I'm thankful that in this time that I fasted, it was led by my body. It was not led by my mind telling my body what to do. It was my body asking for a break, and I graciously gave it that, and I'm thankful that I did that. So fasting has its place. It certainly has its place. But you got to keep it in its place. Don't let it take over. Don't let it derail efforts in other ways. All right, that's it. I'll leave it there. I love y'all. Bye.